Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My husband and I spent years moving around for work, renting apartments in different cities. But as we approached our 50s, we craved stability and a place to call our own. We stumbled upon a quiet cul-de-sac in the middle of town, a neighborhood we didn't even know existed until we started house hunting. The area seemed perfect, peaceful, well-maintained, and close to everything we needed. We were thrilled when we found a cozy house with a beautiful sycamore tree in the front yard. It felt like home the moment we stepped inside. Our neighbors were mostly retirees, about 10-20 years older than us. At first, we didn't think much of it. We were excited to be part of a mature, established community. But soon we realized there was an unspoken expectation we weren't prepared for: lawn perfection. Every house on the street had a meticulously manicured yard. It was like living in the middle of a golf course. Our neighbors spent hours each day tending to their lawns, trimming hedges, and removing every stray leaf. It was impressive, but also a bit intimidating. The neighbor to our right took things to an extreme. He didn't have a single tree in his yard, but he was obsessed with keeping it leaf-free. He'd use a leaf vacuum multiple times a day, even during rainstorms. I'd watch him from our window, rushing out between downpours to suck up any leaves that dared to land on his precious grass. At first, we tried to keep up. We spent our weekends mowing, raking, and doing our best to fit in. But life had other plans for us. A few years after moving in, I developed a chronic illness that left me unable to do heavy yard work. My husband picked up the slack, but it was a lot for him to handle on top of his job. We managed for a while, but then the pandemic hit and everything changed. My husband became disabled during the lockdowns, and suddenly, neither of us could maintain the yard to the neighborhood standards. Our finances took a hit too, leaving us with limited options for hiring help. We did our best to find solutions. We hired a local kid to mow the lawn for cheap, but when schools reopened, he stopped working for us. We turned to family for help, but they could only come by a couple of times a month at most. That's when the trouble really started. Our grass would grow a bit taller between mowings, and suddenly we were getting visits from city code enforcement. At first, I was confused. I soon learned that our neighbors were calling to report us every time our grass grew slightly over 6 inches. I got to know the woman handling these calls quite well. She was sympathetic to our situation and agreed that the reports were excessive. But rules were rules, and she had to follow up on every complaint. What hurt the most was that none of our neighbors ever spoke to us about it. Not once did they ask if everything was okay or why our lawn care had changed. Instead, they chose to report us over and over again. The city gave us a month to handle each complaint, and we always did. But it was stressful and frustrating. We felt like outcasts in our own neighborhood, all because we couldn't maintain a perfect lawn. After years of this treatment, my husband and I decided we'd had enough. If they wanted to play by the rules, so would we. We called the city and asked them to mark our property lines. We also requested a copy of the city code about lawn decorations. To our delight, there was nothing prohibiting pink flamingos. The next day, we set up 20 large pink flamingos along our property line and the sidewalk. They were bright, gaudy, and impossible to miss. I wish I could have seen our neighbors' faces when they first spotted our new lawn ornaments. The city official who came to check on our latest violation couldn't help but laugh when she saw our flamingo army. She confirmed that we weren't breaking any rules and seemed to enjoy our creative solution. Our cul-de-sac might not look like a perfect postcard anymore, but it feels more like home than ever. And if our neighbors don't like it, well, they know where to find the complaint hotline. It begins with my beloved dog, a gentle Labrador, giving birth to a litter of 6 adorable puppies. As a veterinary student, I was thrilled to witness the miracle of life and help care for the new family. Little did I know, this joyous event would lead to a nightmarish encounter. It was a quiet afternoon when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it to find a woman standing there, her face plastered with a fake smile. She introduced herself as my neighbor from down the street and said she'd heard about my dog's new puppies. I nodded, confirming the news. The woman's eyes lit up and she asked if she could see them. Hesitantly, I agreed, leading her to the room where my dog and her puppies were resting. As soon as she laid eyes on them, she squealed with delight, exclaiming how cute they were. She then turned to me and declared that she wanted one for her daughter's upcoming birthday. I politely explained that the puppies were too young to be separated from their mother and that I wasn't planning on selling or giving them away. The woman's demeanor instantly changed. Her smile vanished, replaced by a scowl. She demanded that I give her a puppy, insisting that her daughter deserved one and that I had no right to keep them all to myself. I stood my ground, reiterating that the puppies weren't for sale or adoption. The woman's face turned red with anger. She started yelling, calling me selfish and accusing me of ruining her daughter's birthday. I remained calm but firm, asking her to leave my house. As I escorted her to the door, she continued to berate me, threatening to report me for animal hoarding. I closed the door behind her, relieved to have her out of my house but shaken by the encounter. Over the next few days, I received multiple calls from unknown numbers. When I answered, I heard the woman's voice, alternating between pleading and threatening. I blocked each number, hoping she'd eventually give up. One night, about a week after the initial incident, I was awakened by a loud crash downstairs. My heart racing, I grabbed my phone and crept out of my bedroom. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard my dog growling fiercely, a sound I'd never heard from her before. I rushed down the stairs and froze in shock at the sight before me. The woman from before was in my living room, struggling with my dog. One of the puppies was tucked under her arm, whimpering pitifully. Shards of glass from the broken window littered the floor. I shouted at her to stop and put the puppy down. She whirled around, her eyes wild with desperation. She yelled back, saying the puppy was hers now and that I couldn't stop her. My dog, normally the gentlest creature, was in full protective mode. She lunged at the woman. The woman screamed as my dog attacked, defending her puppy. I called the police, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. Within minutes, I heard sirens approaching. When the police arrived, they found the woman on the floor, bleeding and whimpering. My dog stood over her, growling softly, while the puppy had scrambled back to its littermates. The officers quickly assessed the situation, calling for medical assistance. I explained everything to the police, the previous encounter, the harassment, and now this break-in and attempted puppy theft. They listened attentively, taking notes and assuring me that I was not in any trouble. As paramedics arrived and loaded the woman onto a stretcher, one of the officers approached me. He informed me that the woman would be facing multiple charges, including breaking and entering, attempted theft, and animal cruelty. He also advised me to consider getting a restraining order. My dog received extra treats and belly rubs for her bravery. She wasn't just a pet to me, she was family, and she'd proven she'd do anything to protect her own, just as I would for her. I'm 23 years old, and I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years. We recently moved in together about 2 months ago. Everything seemed perfect, but little did I know what was coming. When I was a teenager, I had this massive obsession with collecting Pokemon cards. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a passion. Over the years, I managed to amass a collection of over 5,000 cards. Most of them were common ones, worth maybe a few cents to a couple of dollars each. But some were real treasures, worth up to $250 apiece. But the value wasn't just about money. You see, the first 300 cards in my collection were from my dad. He passed away from hepatitis C when I was young. He loved gaming, and my mom held onto his cards for years before giving them to me in my early teens. That's what got me hooked. Those cards were a connection to him, a piece of his memory I could hold on to. As I grew older, I kept collecting. It became a way to feel close to my dad, to continue something he started. I never really planned on selling them, at least not anytime soon. They were more than just cards to me, they were memories, a legacy. Then came the day that changed everything. I was cleaning my room, looking for something in my closet, when I noticed my collection box was missing. Panic set in immediately. I tore the room apart, searching everywhere, but it was gone. I was going crazy, thinking maybe I'd misplaced it somehow. An hour later, my girlfriend came home from running errands. I was still frantically searching, and she asked what was wrong. When I told her about the missing cards, her face changed. She looked guilty. That's when she dropped the bomb. She told me she had given away my entire collection to her cousin a month ago. Just like that, gone. Her reasoning? She thought since I was an adult now, I wouldn't need them anymore. Her cousin had asked for them during a visit, and she just gave them away, without asking me, without even thinking about what they might mean to me. I was stunned, shocked, angry. I told her to get them back immediately, but she refused, saying it would be too humiliating for her. Can you believe that? She was more worried about feeling embarrassed than about what she'd done to me. I didn't know what to do. I loved her, but this was a betrayal I couldn't ignore. Those cards weren't just pieces of cardboard. They were a connection to my dad, a part of my childhood, my memories, and she'd given them away like they were nothing. I had a recording of her confessing to what she'd done. I knew I could take legal action, get compensated in court, but I also knew that would probably end our relationship. Still, the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'd rather have my cards back than stay with someone who could disrespect me and my memories like that. I tried talking to her cousin, explaining the situation, but he refused to give the cards back. His parents were no help either, being just as entitled as he was. It was clear they saw nothing wrong with what had happened. That's when I decided to take the legal route. I filed a police report. At first, the police didn't seem to care much about some playing cards, but my sister, who's studying to become a lawyer, stepped in. She explained the estimated value of the collection, and suddenly the police were interested. We told them the collection was worth between $5,000 to $5,500. It took some time, but eventually, the police confiscated 4,987 of my cards from the cousin and had them appraised. The result? They were worth approximately $6,000, even more than we'd estimated. But some cards were still missing, including the ones my father had left me. It turned out the cousin had sold those, knowing they were valuable. We managed to track down the buyers, who thankfully returned the cards without any fuss. Throughout this whole ordeal, my girlfriend's true colors really showed. She tried lying to the police, but my recording caught her out. She ended up being charged with grand larceny and fined for lying to the police. Her cousin tried to save his own skin, claiming he'd bought the cards in good faith. But I knew the truth. He'd had his eye on my collection for years, always trying to buy them from me. I had photos of all the cards, front and back, along with some receipts, which really helped prove my case. My sister wants to sue them all for emotional distress, but I'm not sure about that. Part of me wants to just put this whole nightmare behind me and move on. I'm just looking forward to having my cards back, especially those first 300 from my dad. Some things are worth more than any relationship. I've always been a dog lover, even after a scary incident when I was a kid. A big dog bit my face, and I nearly lost my cheek. It took some reconstructive surgery to fix, but I didn't let it sour me on dogs. I knew it wasn't the dog's fault. Usually, it's the owners who are to blame for bad behavior. Fast forward to today, and I'm the proud owner of a little terrier. He's getting on in years, and he's had his share of run-ins with bigger dogs. It's left him pretty nervous around unfamiliar canines, especially when they're off-leash and charging at him. I recently moved to a new city, looking for a fresh start. One of my first priorities was finding good parks where I could take my furry friend for walks. I made sure to look for places with clear leash rules. It's safer for everyone that way. This morning I decided to check out a new park. It was a beautiful day, perfect for a stroll with my little buddy. We were having a great time enjoying the scenery and the fresh air. Everything was going smoothly until we walked over a small hill. That's when I saw her. A woman with two dogs about 20-25 yards away. One was a little whiner dog not causing any trouble, but the other was a big German shepherd, and it wasn't on a leash. The moment that dog spotted us, it came charging, barking its head off. I've learned a few tricks over the years to handle situations like this. Quick as I could, I scooped up my terrier and lifted him high over my head. It keeps him calm and out of reach. But that didn't stop the German Shepherd. It reached us in seconds, growling and trying to jump up to get at my dog. I called out to the woman, asking her to control her dog, but she just stood there watching like it was some kind of show. The German Shepherd lunged again and I had to use my leg to push it away. I yelled at the woman again, louder this time, to call off her dog. That's when things really went south. The woman lost it completely. She started screaming at me, calling me names and telling me to get out of what she called her park. She accused me of kicking her dog, which I definitely wasn't doing. I was just trying to keep it from jumping up at my terrier. I warned her that if her dog bit me, I'd call the police. That finally got her to act. She called her dog back, but it took a few tries before it listened. Through all of this, she never moved from her spot. She just stood there yelling until her dog finally came back to her. Once she had the German Shepherd by the collar, she started cursing at me again, still insisting I leave her park. I'd had enough at this point. I turned around and headed back to the parking area, got my dog safely in the car, and thought that would be the end of it. But no, she followed us. As she was loading her dogs into her own car, she kept on yelling, saying I'd ruined her day, and repeating that she could do whatever she wanted in her park. That's when I decided to take action. I snapped a quick picture of her and her license plate, then pulled out my phone to call the local non-emergency line. You should have seen her face when she realized what I was doing. For a moment, it looked like she might come at me, but as soon as I started describing the situation to the operator, she changed her tune. She jumped in her car and sped off, still yelling and swearing as she went. I filed a formal complaint with the park authorities. They took my report seriously, especially when I mentioned the potential danger to children. They promised to increase patrols in the area and keep an eye out for the woman and her dogs. A week later, I got a call from the park ranger. They caught the woman letting her dogs run off leash again. This time, they issued her a hefty fine and a warning. One more incident, and she'd be banned from the park altogether. As for me and my terrier, we found a new favorite spot in the park, far from where we had our encounter. It's quieter, with responsible dog owners who follow the rules. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. And who knows, maybe one day, that entitled woman will realize that the park belongs to everyone, not just her. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.